at the heart of your thesis is the debate around the Osborne effect. And any technology or consumer electronics fan will always think about Apple and the iPhone in that way. But why? And what is the conclusion you've drawn?
Well, Ed, maybe taking a step back, the Osborne effect is a phenomenon that I'm sure any Apple user and any tech user is familiar with, but they may not know that, but defined as such. And that's this concept of if there is a pending big product coming, it's likely that you hold off on buying the existing product. Now, every year there's a slight Osborne effect, but the more anticipation there is for a next version of an iPhone, the greater the Osborne effect. And so I, in my years of covering Apple, have seen quarters where they have guided down before a major product cycle. In the case of their guidance for September, they guided for similar revenue growth, 5% for the September quarter, as they just reported in June. And so effectively, they are bucking the Osborne effect in front of what is a highly anticipated cycle. And why that's so important is that's a sign that consumers simply can't live without Apple devices. It's that they still, even though it makes sense for them to hold off for just another month or two, they can't do it because they need these phones to continue to basically live their lives. And so I think that this was, even though the guidance was effectively in line for September, I think it really sent a powerful message to investors, the strength of their product line. I think that's why the stock is up today.
Gene, the top thing here is Apple Intelligence and the impact it will or won't have. Several analysts had multiple stabs at getting Tim Cook and Luca Maestri, the CFO, to talk about the direct impact of Apple Intelligence on an upgrade cycle. I think Tim Cook went the furthest maybe in saying that there will be a meaningful cycle, but no sort of data. What did you make of that?
And he added that they just don't know until they know, and I think he was being reasonable. I think what I make of it is I think it's a kind of a responsible, judicious response from him. At the end of the day, it comes down to, I think, going forward here, you take his comments and you kind of set them aside, and you have to ask yourself a very basic question. Do you think that these features, basically embedding generative AI throughout many, if not all, features of the iPhone, do you think that they are going to get people excited enough that they upgrade more often and they kind of create this super cycle for the next couple of years? And while we don't have the confirmation from management on that, I think that is the central question. Just one other piece to add, Ed, that you
Sure.
Alluded to, is that there is these features are going to come out over the next year. And so it's not going to be this kind of aha moment on the end of September. It's going to be where people get the new phones, they'll get a feature, they'll get another feature. And I think collectively in fiscal 25, we're going to see momentum around this cycle build, but it will not be a rocket ship type of a takeoff. It's going to be more of something that's going to build momentum over the next year.
In China, there has been much made, Gene, of the third-party data. If I've learned a lesson, it's probably be cautious about the third-party data because sometimes Apple executives then prove you wrong. But it has been hard to gauge the iPhone's performance against some of the domestic handset makers. Did you learn anything about that market from the call? And indeed, when we spoke to the CFO, Luca Maestri, on the phone, Bloomberg's Emily Chang did that one, he's saying that the underlying demand is better than it's previously been in China.
That Luca's comments, Tim's comments were that this is the most fierce competitive environment of anywhere in the world, and they're seeing a macro piece to it too. And so if I can interpret or translate Luca's comments kind of going forward here, is that essentially China's been tough. It's been down for 3 consecutive quarters, down 7%, last quarter down 8%, down 13% in December. The good news is, and maybe this kind of gets to Luca's point, he's probably looking forward at these comps. And the comps start to get really easy in September and even easier in December. And so the probability that China returns to growth is high going forward. So I think that is a little bit of a relief. We kind of got through what is the trough, I think, ultimately of China. And just to put some perspective of how much that can impact the business, is if you would exclude China from the overall business, so just look at the other 82% of their business, it grew about 7% in the quarter. As you mentioned, their overall business grew at 5%. That was reported globally. And so China has a big weight on it. It has been a weight. I think that this will convert to a tailwind in the September or highly likely the December quarter.
How important were services, Gene, particularly to the bottom line, which is where I was looking?
Another nice surprise is that a few quarters ago, services growth dipped to just under 11%. It was 14% in the June quarter. They guided to just over 13% growth for the September quarter. And that's all in the face of what's gone on in terms of this talk of regulation. There has been some more substance to regulation in Europe, and they highlighted that the Europe App Store accounts for about 7% of total App Store revenue, which translates to about less than 1% of overall revenue. But the point is that despite these changes, these headwinds, this concern, this anxiety around investors over the past year, that somehow the services segment is going to slow, it just continues year in, year out. I think it's testimony to just the flywheel of their products, the ecosystem, them continuing to add. And that services number next year should get a nice boost with this OpenAI arrangement. They will likely charge for a premium version of ChatGPT next year, $20 a month. Apple's going to take their cut on that. I think that is going to continue to put the services segment in kind of this mid-teens growth for through end of 25 or 26.